All right, well, good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Thank you all for joining us for CHCI's Southern California Alumni Chapter's first of we're hoping to be mini series of our llégale series in hopes of doing a sort of a lunch and learn virtual style workshop for our alumni. And part of the llégale series is really to highlight um, the work that the CHCI board in Southern California is doing, some of the partnerships that we have with CHCI, that CHCI has with folks in the community, and then also just give a space to be able to provide some development opportunities, skills, and then, you know, come up with different ideas that folks might be wanting to get involved in different sectors. So with that being said, today we have a great 1 hour, series here today, inviting some of our partners from our higher education summit. I love higher education because I'm a part of higher education, but we won't go into that. So again, I'll start off. My name is Alfredo Barcenas. I use he, him, all pronouns, and I serve as CHCI's Southern California Alumni Chapter Vice President. But before we get into this awesome program and introduce our guests, I'd like to hand it over first to our awesome president for our chapter, and that is Marina Ramirez. So I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Alfredo. Hello, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Marina Ramirez, and I'm the current president of the Southern California chapter for the CHCI Alumni Association. So I want to welcome and thank you all for being here today. We're very excited to kick off our new llégale series by showcasing CHCI's partnerships with nationally ranked colleges and universities to provide us alumni with greater access to premier graduate programs and critical financial support when it comes to those particular programs as well. So in addition to our partner here today, UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs, CHCI also has partnerships with eight other higher educational institutions, and those are USC, Carnegie Mellon University, Syracuse University, University of Arkansas, the University of Virginia, Indiana University, NYU, and the University of Michigan. So these all incredible higher institutions have provided or now have a partnership with CHCI in which they allow greater access for the alumni as well as some tuition discounts as well. So I want to encourage you to review these partnerships and look at them at the CHCI's website. Feel free to follow up with Patty Mendoza, our CHCI Director of Alumni Affairs, or myself or Alfredo if you guys have any questions. And for now, I'm going to let Alfredo take it away.
Thank you so much, Marina. And again, we're really excited for today's workshop and our first of our many for our llégale series. So talking about higher education, I'd like to introduce our host for today, our guest speakers from the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. And so first, we'll start off with Kevin Franco, who serves as Director of Student Affairs for the UCLA Department of Public Policy. And then I'll also hand it over to his colleague, Christy Portlock, Assistant Director of Recruitment and Admission for the UCLA Master of Public Policy program. So I'm going to really quickly go through a bio for both of you, and then I'll hand it over to you. So Kevin is a non-binary queer Guatemalan living in Van Nuys. As a scholar practitioner in the field of higher education and student affairs, Kevin is passionate about enacting system-wide educational change. His experience builds on 12 plus years working in the nonprofit and higher education sector in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York City, with high school youth, undergraduate students, and graduate students from diverse backgrounds. He is a proud alumni from the University of California, Berkeley, where he received his BA in sociology, and New York University, where he received his master's in higher education and student affairs with a concentration in social justice. And Christy is a Los Angeles native and a multi-ethnic individual. She studied linguistics in New York, graduating in 2013, has received a TSL, TFL, certification in 2017. He currently holds the position of Assistant Director of Admission and Recruitment for the Department of Public Policy at UCLA Luskin and has been with the university as a career professional for 8 years. Christy has also taken on the role of ESL instructor for the Los Angeles Community College District. Is that correct? Awesome. She's an avid believer that anyone with the right preparation is ready for graduate school. My friends, thank you for joining us, and I will hand it over to you all.
Thank you so much, Alfredo, for the introduction. As Alfredo mentioned, I'm the Director of Student Services at the Public Policy Department. Typically, how I describe my role with prospective applicants and current MPP students is that I not only serve as their academic advisor, but also truly like a thought partner. I support the students in their 2-year journey here in our program, either with academic support, connecting them to resources. It really is a holistic type of a service approach that we implement here at the Luskin School of Public Affairs. While I upload our presentation, I'll let my colleague Christy say a few words if she would like.
Yes, hi everyone. We're very happy to be here. We absolutely enjoy having our partnerships because they are just really meaningful to us and to increase the diversity and preparation of our student body and our cohorts every year. So my role does a lot in terms of outreach and recruitment, obviously. I do my best to communicate, I would say, the standards of the program, best practices in terms of preparing for applying to the program or even preparing for a review of the program, and really just acting as a guide for individuals interested in joining the Master of Public Policy program as a graduate student. I did mean what I said in my bio. I do feel like everyone with the correct preparation and time can be a successful graduate student. So again, we're very happy to be here and to talk to all of you.
Before moving forward, I also just want to give a special shout out to one of our CHEI alumni, but also UCLA MPP alumni, Alejandra Garcia, who's I see that she's joining us in the chat as well. So for this particular presentation, we want to give a brief overview of our program, and also talk a little bit about what the CHCI partnership with UCLA Lawson School of Public Affairs entails. With any presentation that I do, feel free to chime in if you have any questions. You can raise your hand, you can like unmute yourself, whichever you feel comfortable, you can write in the chat as well. I want this to be a conversation amongst us all. A lot of the information is going to be very surface level, just given the time constraint. But towards the end, I have provided our contact information for Christy and I. So I always encourage folks, if you're interested in applying to our program, please reach out to us. I think one of the important aspects about the admissions process at the graduate level is that relationships really do play a part in it. And so we always welcome prospective applicants or interested applicants to just have a conversation with us and further just to get to understand a little bit of where your areas of support will be if you intend to apply to a program. So for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to be doing a kind of an overview of the structure of Luskin School. We're a little bit different from other public policy schools that you may be aware of. Christy and I will talk a little bit more about the Department of Public Policy. We'll talk about program services and student resources. And then, of course, I think the main point of the conversation, as with any recruitment and admissions conversations that we have, financial aid. I have scheduled some time for Q&A towards the end, but again, please feel free to chime in throughout the conversation. I want this to be as engaging as possible for everyone. So the Luskin School of Public Affairs, who are we? We always find this to be an important conversation, an important note that we want to communicate to prospective applicants is that we are a department of public policy. We are not a school of public policy. And I think that's an important distinction to make because a lot of the public policy schools like University of Michigan, Goldman, right, or USC, Price, those are actual public policy schools. We are housed within the School of Public Affairs where we share space in further collaboration with other graduate programs, particularly the Department of Social Welfare, which they have a Master's of Social Welfare and a PhD in Social Welfare. We also share this house with the Department of Urban Planning. They have a Master's of Urban and Regional Planning and a PhD in Urban Planning. We have the Public Affairs undergraduate major, for UCLA undergraduate students who are interested in getting a little bit more exposure to public policy. And then, of course, it's us, the Department of Public Policy. We unfortunately do not have a PhD in public policy. We have a 2-year master's program. And so we oftentimes we get a lot of questions, well, what is the difference between the Department of Public Policy versus at school, for example? And one of the main distinctions is that we are a much smaller community. Kristen will talk a little bit about the size of our cohort and whatnot. But as opposed to a public policy school where you may have a cohort of over 100 students, our cohort tends to be a lot smaller. Because we are a department, there's a lot of more opportunity to build community with faculty and staff. And so you may not necessarily, you may be, for those students who probably went to an undergraduate school that was really large, UCLA is pretty large, but because we are a department, it tends to be a much more community-based academic program. And then I'll pass it on to my colleague, Christy, where she was going to be talking a little bit more about our department.
Yes, so in a snapshot, the Master of Public Policy program is a 2-year full-time in-person program. We have quantified the time to roughly 50 hours a week. This in some cases depends on your own individual strengths. So our program is very quantitatively heavy, as in your fall quarter, you will be taking stats and econ, and then in your winter quarter, you're taking the second half or the second level of those courses. So again, stats and econ. So we do encourage that you have some type of quantitative background, especially if you do not want to submit the GRE, which is optional for our domestic applicants. I would say we have individuals from a variety of backgrounds, from some that are very easily relatable. So political science, sociology. Then we'll have people that come from more quantitative backgrounds, so like economics, finance, and then we'll have outliers. We'll have individuals coming from something like theater. So it really just depends on how well together your application is, your statements, your letters of recommendation, and kind of like your focus. If you have something that's very unique to you, that is kind of your motivating factor for getting into policy, we want to hear from you. Typically, our cohort sizes are about 70 to 80 students, and that's for each class. So in a 2-year program, we'll have anywhere between 140 to 160 students. And we do our best to kind of facilitate community between those two groups, which can, it can be a challenge, but a lot of the times I would say like our second years tend to take on something of a mentor role for our first years, or at least that they have that opportunity. We are a professional program, so we are inclined to look for individuals that have some professional experience after their undergraduate years. I know a lot of people think that taking a gap year or taking time off of undergrad post completing their degree is a negative, but for a lot of master's programs, in particular a professional one like this one, it is definitely a positive. So it's something that you want to highlight in your application. We're interdisciplinary. So Kevin mentioned that we have 2 other master's programs that are housed within the Luskin School of Public Affairs. And as a graduate student, you would be able to take courses from social welfare, from urban planning. You could also take courses from across campus, and that includes the Anderson School of Business, the School of Law, the Department of Education. So there is a lot of fluidity, a lot of agency when it comes to you and your professional policy journey. We do require a 400-hour internship. This can be fulfilled a number of ways, but most of our students will usually complete these 400 hours over the summer between their first and their second year in the program. And where you do that internship is ultimately up to you as well. So again, that flexibility and that agency, we do provide a lot of guidance. So if you're having a hard time finding an internship, we have resources to help you with that. But if you have an internship in mind, or an organization in mind that you already know you want to work for, then you're free to do that as well. You also wouldn't be required to work with only one organization. So one of our, I like to call him one of our founders. He was originally the person that did both the jobs that Kevin and I do, but back when policy was a new program and it was much smaller. essentially it's whether or not you're looking for a breadth of experience or depth of experience. So if, for instance, you're coming into the program and you know that you want to focus on, say, sustainability and environmentalism, then maybe you would complete all 400 of your hours with an organization that focuses on that. If you want to come in as more of a generalist, for instance, then you can do maybe 200 hours with an environmental organization, and then another 200 hours maybe with a think tank or something that has more of a data focus. So again, there's a lot of agency here, and some people like that and some people don't. But I like to think of it as a strength because policy in any particular field of focus doesn't really exist in a silo. I said a
If I
lot.
could,
Go for
if I
it.
can add a little bit, Christy, I want to emphasize the professional program aspect of it. The recent graduating class of 2023 were the first cohort where they had the option to submit a GRE. And so what we have realized and what we're moving forward with is that that opened the floodgate of really bringing a very strong group of people with professional experience. So if you're currently an undergrad or if you're someone that just took a gap year or a gap years, I think that's great. We are moving towards looking for more professional background, and it doesn't necessarily have to be directly in the policy field. Well, while that is great, I think our program is really valuing the importance of professional background, along with academic preparation as well.
Yes, absolutely. Navigating the policy space does require that. So yes, absolutely. Finally, we do require a final group project, and this is what you would take up most of your second year. It's called your applied policy project. And it's when you're adopting a consulting role in groups of about 4 to 5, typically 5. You are choosing your client to complete the policy analysis. You're also making active recommendations which they can implement. So the work is very applied, especially in your second year, and it's meant to be built off of all the skills that you've gained in your first year. And then as a note, I think I said this already, but it is in person. So we are expecting our students to go to class on campus. Would you like me to
Please
continue?
go. Mhm.
Okay, so our approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is what our diversity breakdown looks like for the class of 2024 entering. Over the years, we have made a significant effort to have more first generation students included in the cohort. Students that are California residents tend to take up the majority of our cohort, but that's not necessarily intentional. It's just kind of how it breaks out. And then as you can see, we're increasing the, I would say, overall diversity balance of our cohort. So it's not that we want to see any one particular demographic kind of dominate, who's coming. We want to see kind of everyone because Los Angeles is such a diverse city and there are so many cultures and backgrounds represented here. We want to see that in the actual cohort itself because these are our future policymakers for the city and beyond. We do have key partnerships with pipeline organizations, CHCI being one of them, of course. CBCF and PPIA are 2 other additional pipeline programs that we have. We have growing relationships with international partners, including the University of Tokyo in Japan, the Hertie School in Berlin, and most recently, the University of Geneva and Geneva, Switzerland. We have an office or a unit dedicated to diversity, disparities, and differences that are managed out of the dean's office. And every year we have student representatives sitting on the management board to kind of make the recommendations that we need to see in the year and to represent the cohort body that we have. And we do make, again, very intentional recruitment efforts for first generation and international applicants. So when I say we want to hear from you, that I'm being very genuine. We do one-on-ones all the time. There are workshops to kind of help you troubleshoot the application. In the fall, we host a program called the Peer Application Review Program. And that's when we partner you with a current student to help you troubleshoot your application before you submit so that you really can get all the support that you need to submit your best work and have consideration not only for admission, but for funding.
I also want to mention that Christine and I are trained in providing support for first generation students. So I think that's why you see that I would argue we're one of the few programs that have such a large cohort of first generation students in their program. So just reiterating what Christy said, please reach out if you're interested about our program. We promise we're very friendly. But our practices, as we'll talk a little bit more about it during the recruitment and admissions process, is very focused on first generation and helping them navigate the graduate application process for our department. Are there any questions before we move?
Yeah, we've said quite a lot.
Okay. So I will be talking a little bit about curriculum. Oh, Maria, I see the Marina. I saw that you raised your hand.
Yeah, I did have a quick question. I know you guys mentioned that you could do an internship with anyone, really is what it sounded like, but is there a criteria for that? Just so that the applicants are aware or potential applicants are aware.
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you. Yes, you can do your internship at any site. It has to be policy related though. So that would include that your internship has to include data collection, data analysis. You're either evaluating the program, providing policy recommendations or recommendations on policy initiatives. It does have to be policy related focus. There are graduate student research positions available on campus. And because those positions tend to often have a strong emphasis on research, that also does count towards your internship requirements. Some people finish their 400 hours in one internship site. Other people finish their 400 hours in various different internship sites. Over the pandemic, we realized that, and also because of the diversity of our cohort, specifically first generation students who, have to work full time or work multiple part-time jobs, we implemented a practice of students who are coming with direct policy experience already. They have the opportunity to waive the internship requirement. So if you're already coming with about 4+ years in policy experience, you would be eligible to waive our internship requirement. If, let's say, you have 2 years of policy experience and you're working with the same organization while you're going to our program, you can also waive the internship requirement. The purpose of this was, of course, to accommodate people who are working already in the field, but also to kind of provide folks with the opportunity to take more elective courses if they choose not to waive the internship requirement.
Thank you.
So I'll be talking a little bit about our core curriculum, and this is a fun part conversation for me specifically because I'm gonna be really honest with our curriculum. And I want everyone to just be open-minded with the honesty I'm gonna be sharing. We are a 2-year program, and so like Christine mentioned, we are in person. We are the type of program that unfortunately does not necessarily cater to the working professional. I say that because most of our core classes and elective classes happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So what oftentimes people tend to do is stack their classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they have part-time jobs or internships on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We do have a small group of students who are working full-time while attending our program. And typically that happens because they have developed an agreement with their employer prior to joining our program. So that I definitely want to be transparent about that. As Christy mentioned, we are a pretty quantitative heavy program. And because of the diversity of skill sets in our cohorts, there are people that are coming with strong quant background in econ or stats. But then there are some people who got their bachelor's in the humanities and they didn't necessarily engage with a lot of math content. We really do look at applications holistically. So if you don't necessarily have a math background, you're not totally like denied, into our program. We look at things holistically, but I think, and this is just a good recommendation for any public policy program. I would recommend, if you don't have any quant background, to enroll yourself in a community college class on micro econ or stats, so you can become a much more competitive candidate in any of the public policy programs that you apply. not just necessarily ours. You will be taking, I will consider the first year as a year that you will be gaining content knowledge about the policy field and the skill sets of it. You have to enroll yourself in 2 microecon class, 2 statistics class, a class in politics and policy making, and a class in methods of policy analysis. So your first year, unfortunately, about you have 6 classes that you have to take. These are mandatory classes. It's also a good way to bond with your cohort. All of your cohort peers will be taking that class as well. And it's a really great way also to engage with your cohort and with the faculty members. Now, this is where I'm going to be really honest with everyone. We are a pretty social justice oriented school. And because of that, we attract a very social justice student. These are students who are very passionate about creating change. They're very passionate about specific areas of policy interest. And so because of that, I think oftentimes students join our program and because there's space in our, I would say there's space in our program to engage in those critical conversations with one another. Students coming into our program thinking that, oh, the core curriculum is going to teach me how to dismantle the system, or they're gonna teach me how to, like, for example, defund the police. That's just one example. Um, the reality of it is that public policy programs are pretty white male dominating in thinking. And this is across the board of all public policy schools. And we are not an anomaly of it. We are very much, the core curriculum very much teaches you how the system works. And so oftentimes what I tell students is that you're here to learn how the system works, but it is up to you to develop your own practice in the policy field of how are you going to combat that. And so you'll learn how the market works. You learn how to analyze data through our stats. But I think it's important to know that it really is up to you to engage in your philosophical understanding of what type of policy leader and practitioner you want to be. You also, so that's the first year. I'll talk a little about the electives a little bit in a bit. The second year, think of it as you're applying theory into practice. This is where the applied policy project will take place. As Christy mentioned, you adopt a consulting role in it. You get to choose your cohort peers. It's a group of 5 in a team. You get to choose your team members. You also get to choose your clients. And you get assigned a faculty advisor that helps you throughout the year-long process. Think of the fall quarter, the year 2, as the process of where you are engaging with your client, you're establishing a client agreement. This is where you're also establishing the research methodology that you will be conducting to address the policy question at hand. When you move on to the winter quarter is when you're gonna either implement your research if you haven't done so in the fall, and then you're going to be collecting your data, you're going to be analyzing it, and then you're going to be submitting your first draft of your applied policy report. Then you move on to the spring quarter where you'll be submitting your final version of your report along with a 30-minute presentation, 20 minutes of presentation, 10 minutes of Q&A to the entire MPP community. We invite the first year cohort to join in the presentations. We invite faculty members in our department, and you also get to invite loved ones and your clients to participate in your presentation as well. So just to reiterate, think of the first year as gaining content knowledge. We, as I mentioned, we tend to be more of a reformist school, although I would argue that we one of the programs where you can actually engage in social justice issues here. You won't have a hard time finding someone in your cohort that believe that equity is important. It's I would say it's the spirit of the Luskin MPP students to really implement that in their practice. And in the second year, again, it's like you're bridging theory into practice. We are a very flexible curriculum, so you can take elective courses outside of our department. In fact, I encourage students to take courses outside of a department because like Christy mentioned, policy does not exist in silos. And so we really push our students to try to get an interdisciplinary approach to public policy. I know I mentioned a lot about the curriculum, so I want to give space if anyone has any questions about what I just mentioned. Great. So students also have the opportunity to create an area of concentration. Some of our most popular ones are education policy, environmental policy, health policy, immigration policy, labor policy, and tech policy, as well as social policy and economic policy. So we don't have specific tracks for you to pursue, as in other programs may have like, if you want to pursue an education policy area concentration, you have to take specific classes. We are a little bit different in how we conduct that here in our program. You actually have the opportunity to create your own area, your own pathway towards developing your area of concentration. So if you're interested in education policy, you would just have to take a minimum of 3 education related courses, either within our department or outside of our department. Many of our students, for example, who are interested in education policy are taking classes in at UCLA's graduate education graduate program. The same goes for nonprofit leadership. If you're interested in nonprofit leadership, many of our students are taking classes in nonprofit leadership available here in our program or at the Anderson School of Management. So I really want to emphasize that you have a lot of autonomy here in the program. I think one thing that we like to communicate to students is that because there is a lot of autonomy of how you can pursue your areas of interest here, you do have to come into the program a little bit more proactive in terms of what you want to get out of the experience. So if you're looking for a program that's gonna just give you a lot of flexibility in pursuing your interest, we're the program for you. But if you're looking for a little bit more like structure in terms of like, I want a structured pathway to an area concentration, we may not necessarily be the program for you. I say may not because I serve as the academic advisor for MPP students. So you can always meet with me and we can always work together in creating a pathway for you. If you're interested in any of the area concentrations. We also offer 5 dual degree programs. We have a partnership with UCLA Law where you can get your MPP and JD degrees in 4 years. We have a partnership with the Public Health, Masters of Public Health, where you can complete both degrees, MPP and MPH in 3 years. We also have a partnership with the medical school. We have a small cohort of MD, MPP students who complete both of their degrees within a 5 to 6 year span. We have a partnership with the MBA school where you can get your both degrees in 3 years. And then we also have a partnership with the MSW department where you can complete both degrees in 3 years as well. In addition to 5 dual degree programs, we also offer concurrent certificate programs. So if you're interested in gaining an international perspective to policy, we have the Global Public Affairs Certificate Program, focused in 4 different areas: global environment and resources, global processes and institutions, global health and social services, and global urbanization and regional development. So as I mentioned, you can, if you're interested in pursuing a certificate program, any classes that you take in this certificate program will count towards your MPP elective degree unit. Similarly, we offer the Institute of Environment and Sustainability, the Leadership and Sustainability Certificate Program for those who are interested in environmental policy. And then we also offer the Luskin Data Analytics Certificate Program. So if you're interested in gaining a little bit more, sharpening your GIS or your R programming skills, we also offer that for students. So joining our program means that you can receive your MPP degree, you can attain an area concentration, and or you can pursue a certificate program. All of these opportunities count towards your degree, so it's no additional years that you have to take on, and there's no additional cost. So I'll move on to Christy, who will be reviewing program services and student resources.
So again, we are holistic and we offer as much support as we really can possibly manage, which is actually a lot. So for prospective students, we do assist with the application process. Again, I mentioned that we run a program for student statement peer reviews. So you would register to be partnered with a current MPP student, and they would work with you throughout the application process to revise your statements, to look over your resume, to kind of talk more about what their experience is like and give you a firsthand perspective and what you can expect and how to best prepare. They do the resume peer reviews. We offer strategic counseling. So I'm often meet with people on a one-on-one basis. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. If it's a longer conversation, that's perfectly fine too. But it's really to get a gauge on, what your interests are, who to kind of best direct you to in terms of like research centers or faculty, and what their research is and how it can maybe complement your interests. So the counseling is meant to be, again, like a tool. We offer virtual summer workshops, and so this is a more in-depth presentations on what the program is like, on funding opportunities, on the application process itself, and then sometimes we'll host panels for you to meet current students and ask questions on the spot. And then we attend a number of fairs. So most of the fairs are in person, and this year I think we'll have a stronger practice in letting individuals know on our website where we're going to be ahead of time. So if you're in the area, you're welcome to join. And again, it's really to offer kind of like a touch base and get to know you. It's a lot easier to when you're doing the application process. And for instance, this year we received a total of 571 applications, right? It's a lot easier to pick out, say, you, Ariana, because I met you at a fair or you attended a workshop and I know you're interested and we had a conversation and I know you have a background in policy. I know you'd be a great fit for the program. So when the application reviews are happening, it's a lot easier to highlight your application and also say like, oh, this is a CHCI alum and we met and I know they will be a great fit. As a current student, we, as Kevin mentioned, we have a graduate advisor, and that is Kevin, and he's fantastic. I dare you to find someone that doesn't think that he's been incredibly helpful for them throughout their journey. We offer academic tutors. So for that quant and econ stats component, if you're having a difficult time, we have tutors that can meet with you. I believe it's 4 hours a week per class, so 8 hours for each in total. Prior to the start of the program, it's like a pre-orientation week, we have math camp. And that's to introduce you to the concepts that you're going to be working on in the fall, to help you download the software and to really get you prepared for to kind of sprint because 10 weeks goes by pretty fast. And then we also have an in-house career center. So while UCLA campus has a graduate career center, Luskin has one as well, and it's specific to Luskin students. So this is also the Office of Student Alumni Relations. They can help with your 400-hour field placement for the internship. They can help with your post-completion employment support. They can kind of offer certain fellowships and opportunities for you to take advantage of. So I would say like something that sets our program apart as a professional degree and within the school is that we have resources that are specific to our students, for you to, really advance your career and make the most of your experience as a graduate student here at UCLA Luskin.
Just to emphasize, thank you so much, Christy, for that. If you're interested in our program, again, please feel free to reach out. I know, like, as a first gen myself, it can be really scary or you can be really nervous about it. But I really encourage everyone who's interested in our program to reach out to Christy and I. Part of like what Christy mentioned is that we are one of the few programs, if not the only program, that we will actually look at your personal statement and we'll give you feedback. We'll tell you how to improve it. We'll look at your resume and we will actually give you feedback on it. We'll meet with you over the phone or over Zoom. And then it can be multiple meetings as well. This is part of the first gen practice that we are trained on. We understand how difficult it can be for first gen folks in the graduate level to apply to a graduate program. So I do just want to emphasize and encourage people to definitely reach out to us and build relationships. While Christy and I do not make the decision on who gets into the program, we serve as advocates. So if we have met you throughout the recruitment and admissions process, and if we know who you are and we know your story, that helps us advocate on your behalf. In the case that maybe the faculty are 50-50 about your application, Kristen and I have oftentimes stepped in and say, no, this person came to the recruitment and admissions events. They met with us. We know their story. We know their potential. And then it becomes a negotiation between Christy and I and the faculty and the admissions chair. But more often than not, it is only to your benefit that you have an advocate in the recruitment and admissions process. So please, I cannot emphasize that enough, to please reach out.
Sorry, couldn't find a button. We again have a number of research centers, some that are in-house and some that are affiliated. I would say our most popular in-house research centers are the Luskin Center for Innovation, the Lewis Center for Regional Policy Studies, and the the Institute of Transportation Studies. Although we also have the Institute of Inequality and Democracy, the Center for Policy Research on Aging, and another popular research center, the Latino Politics and Policy Institute. So the Luskin Center for Innovation, the Institute of Transportation Studies, and the Latino Politics and Policy Institute sometimes offer fellowships. So if your interest lies in any of these fields, it's really important that you showcase that in your application, because what we will do is forward your application to these research centers, or in the case of LPPI, which is the shorthand for Latino Politics and Policy Institute. There are a number of acronyms here. You will be lost, but I digress. We will either send your applications to the research center or inform our students of fellowships that the centers are currently offering so that you can apply for them. We also have the Research Center with Health Policy Research, the Williams Institute, the Institute of Environment and Sustainability, the Blue Sky Health Initiative, the Center for the Study of Urban Poverty, and the Center for Neighborhood Knowledge. In addition to these research centers, we have a number of student organizations, the Public Policy and Leadership Association, PPLA. We have a number of student caucus groups that are based both on identity and concentration. And something that we like to say is if you don't see something that you want to see, for instance, there was a Luskin first generation student group that was created, I believe it was last year. So if there is something that you don't want to see, that you don't see that you would like to see, you have the autonomy, the agency to create that group, that focus for yourself. Okay, so where do
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So this is kind of like a snapshot, a very, very consolidated example of where some of our alumni have ended up post-graduation. And as you can see, it really varies. So some people will go into nonprofit, and what that looks like definitely depends on what their interests were, as well as what opportunities they took advantage of while they were in the program. A number of our students come from government and will go back to government at different levels. So for instance, we've had students come into government at the local level and then leave and find a position at the national or federal level. We have individuals that go into the private sector. What you're doing with that quantitative component is applicable across the board. So you're getting foundational skills that not only apply to policy, but analysis applies to just about every field. So we have people going into things like media and major retail analysis. And then, of course, we have individuals going directly into the research. So they are, more focused on conducting research, gathering data, analyzing data, and then kind of continuing that cycle of proposing solutions or identifying resolutions and opportunities for organizations to take to solve active issues that they're facing.
So the CHCI partnership The partnership was established in the fall of 2020, and it essentially stipulated that any CHCI alumni that got admitted into our MPP program, they will get an application fee waiver. So anyone who's interested in applying to our program, if you are a CHCI alumni, the application fees are waived. You do not have to pay those application fees. And if you get admitted into our program, you receive a minimum of 7,500 in fellowship for your first year. This means that we say minimum because some of our other CHCI alumni have received more just because of the strength of their application. So you are definitely for sure guaranteed 7,500, but there's always the opportunity to have that increase. The total cost of our program for the year is 30,881. This is for the 2024, this is for the 2023-2024 academic year. I look at that number and I'm like, that is super expensive. Totally, understandable, and I hear you. I would also say that it is still slightly much more cost effective, given the top tier school that UCLA is. So if you are a CHCI alumni coming into our program, the total cost for you is 23,381. This is, of course, can be supplemented by other ways to decrease the cost of the program. If you see, I'm gonna highlight it here, the professional degree supplemental tuition, which is, apologies, which is about 11,300 for the academic year. Those are fees that professional school students have to pay because of the specialized services that they receive as a UCLA graduate student. There's a grant that students receive every year in our program, all based on financial needs, so long as you submit your FAFSA or your Dream Act application. So there's still there's other different ways to reduce the cost of the program, but for the purpose of this presentation, we're focusing specifically on the CHCI partnership. And so I think that concludes our presentation. I'm sharing some of our information, Christy and myself. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions, but we'll stay here for a bit.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin and Christy, for all that information. And I'm sure, definitely, great opportunity, great partnership that we have with UCLA and CHCI. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Also reach out to Kevin and Christy, but wanted to open it up if folks have questions. I have one question for you all, but I want to give some room for individuals in the chat to go to put something up. And I know we have a few minutes left, so.
Yes, hi everyone. Could you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, well, I just want to say a huge thank you to Kevin and Christy. So good to see you both. For those of you that don't know, I am a CHCI and Luskin alumni from 2023, and everything that Kevin and Christy said is true. Of course, I am biased of the MPP program. It was a wonderful program. I came in to the program with 3 years of work experience, and I think it really made a lot more sense having policy experience. And when I was in the classroom, I was able to really connect all the dots when it came to policy. Something that is very unique about Luskin compared to other graduate schools is two things. One is the APP project. We actually don't do a thesis, we do a real life consulting project. And I think as a policy student, you could really shape that project the way you want to. I know I did. My group, I believe, was the only group that had a private sector client, and we all really use that towards our advantage because we all really wanted to work in the private sector. And I was able to, when I was doing my interviews for jobs, I was able to use that as a writing sample. So I would say that is very unique about the program. Then also a lot of programs don't have studying abroad opportunities, and I know Luskin is one that does. And so I did the program with Herdy. I was able to study in Germany, but not only that, I was able to apply those courses that I took abroad to my concentration. And I did a concentration with a department in global health, but then I also did a separate concentration with the global public affairs department. And so I came out of the program with two international concentration. So really what I'm trying to say, it's a wonderful program if you feel that you are interested in a certain policy area. You could really make the most out of your experience with Luskin by taking certain classes, but also connecting with professors and centers and other institutions. So if anyone has any questions and would love to talk to an alumni from both programs, CHCI and Luskin, I am here to help you all. And thank you so much, Kevin and Christy. And also thank you to the board for putting on this amazing program or this amazing webinar.
Thank you, Alejandra. What an endorsement. I see there are some questions in the chat. So let's see, Gonzalo, you asked, in our experience, what are the admissions committee looking for when reviewing applications? We're looking for people that exhibit leadership experience, that have professional experience, that have some type of quant background or experience. So whether or not you have the quant in your academic record, or if it's a part of your professional, like your work on a daily basis. Some people actually do analysis currently as a part of their job. That is something that our committee is looking for. And when I say leadership, I mean, like, sometimes there is a growth trajectory, right? Like some people start in an entry position and then they continue on and, at some point reach management or mid upper level. In terms of academics, if there is a progression in improvement in your grades or your record. So for instance, some people didn't do great in their freshman year, but they did incredible in their senior year. So if we can see that growth trajectory, that's something that's beneficial to you. Engagement with the community, volunteer work, and then again, of course, anything that's policy related. So I would say that those are some of the major green flags for us. Your letters of recommendation also play a really big part. So part of this being holistic is that each component of the application is meant to be a tool to your benefit. So your letters of recommendation, you really want to be mindful of who you choose and that they can speak to your strengths as they apply to policy very well. And then your statement of purpose, if you're clear as to why this is a field that you want to be in, how you're prepared for it, what you've done that kind of puts you in a position to succeed, then yeah, I mean, like, the committee's happy. Kevin, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so every application that the faculty member reviews, they add comments. And so a lot of the comments that we see when people that are not admitted is the statements. It's usually like, it's either people not being able to communicate to the committee, like why they want to pursue a policy degree and why Luskin. I've seen that happen a lot of times. I've also seen the letters of recommendation. So I think sometimes folks think that people with bigger titles looks good. To a degree, it does look good. But what's more important is how they are talking about you in that letter of rec. So there's been plenty of comments where I've seen faculty comment on applications where like, oh, the letter of rec is not as weak, doesn't provide much insight on the applicant. So definitely choose people that can really write you a rich letter of recommendation. Every component of the application really does matter in our program in terms of how you want to paint yourself as an applicant.
All right. Did I miss any other questions in the chat? I think we got them all. Okay. All right. So I want to just quickly ask one more question as we close off. And then Marina, if there's anything else you want to add, definitely want to invite you to do any closing as we come to the hour. But I would say, if you've had that master's experience, I'm looking at Kevin and Christy, if I'm considering a master's program, but I'm like, I have too much, my work's keeping me busy, I have family, I have other obligations. Like, I don't think I can apply for a program. Would that be true, or can you say that, you can jump into a master's program?
Yeah, so that higher ed in me is always yes, and anyone is capable to pursue a graduate degree, everyone, and I really do mean that. I think whether the time is right, it really depends on the person. Graduate school is very different in the way that, as opposed to undergrad, in the way that there's a lot of time commitment and management that you have to do. And there's a lot of stuff that happens really fast that can be very overwhelming. So if you are a parent or, if you are like working full time, like you definitely want to have conversations with your loved ones about like you needing support. I'm not a parent, but I was first gen. And so what really got me to graduate school for me was like my friends. Like I was only in my friends group going to graduate school, but it was really nice to lean on them, even though they weren't necessarily in the same experience as I was. So I think that if you are ready for it, you should be conscious that it is going to be time consuming, and it's going to require a lot of you to really manage your time well and to be conscious, and come with a plan, when you start any graduate program, not just ours, but come with a plan so you're able to understand how to leverage the resources. Just to give a shout out to Alejandra, I think one of the things that I admired about her during the recruitment process was that she was like engaging, she was persistent, and even during the program, she came with a plan. She knew what she wanted to do, who she wanted to talk to, and I think that is one of the best ways that you can move forward when you're thinking about applying to graduate school.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. Kevin, Christy, thank you so much for joining us. Marina, I invite you if there's any closing remarks.
I just want to thank everyone who's on the call. Thank you all for being here today. And Kevin and Christy, we are so happy to have you guys as partners in this new partnership that CHCI is doing with higher education institutions. So thank you both for sharing your time and giving us incredible information about about the partnership with CHCI and UCLA.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone.
Well, thank you, everyone. That concludes today's webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and you can also follow us on Instagram at chci.aa.socal. We look forward to having you at our next llégale series. Have a great afternoon, everyone.